You are listening to transmissions from the planet Zog, Milo and Teal, Book 1, Birds of a Feather. Chapter 12, Jumping the Falls. Milo had stayed in the jungle while Sonia and Teal visited the Village of Colours. It gave him more time to hero worship his cousin Foni, perhaps stealing another joint jump with him on the bungee and otherwise learning about jungle life. He was intrigued by the large-scale platforms which the folk here built between their tree houses. Used as he was to living walkways, which were essentially bridges across the sky, the scale of these public spaces quite took his breath away, and he wanted to understand how they were made. "Foni?" "Yes, Milo," responded Foni. "Do you know how they make the large platforms? I want to grow one for home with Benji." "I don't know, but we could find out. I've heard that most of the platform structures are built underground first." "What? Tree root structures?" Milo was vaguely informed about most forms of building due to his immense curiosity in that department. "Yes, should we go and ask the main constructors? I saw them working on the bungee jumping platform, and they might still be there," said Foni. "Sure," replied the excited Milo. This was definitely turning into yet another chance to jump with Foni. 3 men and 1 woman were carefully winding liana stems and existing tree branches into the edge of the platform. From the way that they were cutting and splicing the twigs, Milo could see that the platform was indeed intended to be strengthened, the new branches eventually replacing the woven lianas. The 4 adults were balanced on a living wooden framework of holes and branches into which this weaving was integrated. After 2.5 minutes watching, Milo could not contain himself. "Could I? Would you mind if I helped?" said Milo. "My cousin here is a builder, a jumper, and an adventurer," added Foni. "If you don't say yes, he'll probably want to throw himself off this platform, on a bungee." "Well, we do need someone to attend to that corner over there," answered kindly woman, busily tucking in a leander strand firmly between 2 taut branches. "We have only 8 hands between us, and we need to hold that branch straight while we weave it into the main structure here. You could grab onto this end and make sure it stays where it should." While the tree-building ladies and gentlemen got on with their serious and physically demanding exercise of pulling through large live branches, much as you or I might attempt to weave a small basket or willow placemat, Milo proudly held the end of the branch, straining his little body to keep it precisely where the nice lady had asked him to. Soon, however, even that exertion was not enough for his enthusiasm, and he called out, "Look out! A branch just pinged out! Shall I fetch it for you?" And before they could actually answer, Milo had clambered, monkey-like in his smallness, across the holy piece of new platform they were building, caught the sprig, and pushed it down into the mat of vegetation they were forming. "My, you are attentive. What is your name?" the kind lady resumed her conversation. "Milo. I'm brother to Teal and son of Sonia, the vanilla lady. We're visiting the jungle for a few days." "Well, Milo of Teal and Sonia, and I suspect Freda?" And Milo nodded in affirmation as she continued. "We are always on the lookout for an apprentice. Do you think this is something which might interest you for a few days? You could come back here next time you are in the jungle and we could resume training where we left off." As the lady, who was in fact Shabinia, finished her sentence, Milo stood up, stretched out his arms to balance as he ran at full tilt towards her to deliver an enormous enveloping hug. "Oh yes, I've always wanted to build here in this jungle," he said, smiling up at her. "At home I built tree houses with my sister and bridges with Benji, but I've never been asked to build something like this before. This is amazing. A whole surface made of living trees, smooth enough to walk and roll on." "That it is indeed, young Milo," came the voice from the man at the furthest corner of the platform building team. "We are lucky enough that the trees like to do what we ask of them, and we like to extend our knowledge and challenge them at every turn. Have you seen the smooth way yet?" "Not much time in the village except for this spot, with Milo's penchant for bungee jumping over the waterfalls," replied Foni. "We could visit the smooth way tonight if you like, Milo. You can see it by the light of the stars and dance. Imagine that, barefoot, high up in the tree canopies on the softest, springiest wooden dance floor you're likely to ever encounter." "You are right, Foni, isn't it just?" said the man, addressing Foni with a twinkle in his eye. Leaning forward, he whispered towards Milo. "There is magic in those floorboards, my son. The trees grow the insides of their branches to the surface just for us, because we planted our compost heap at the basis. Reciprocation. That's the eternal theme of the jungle. We do and they do. We give and they give back." "And the dances which are held there are like none other on Zog," said Shabinia. "Fairy lights are lit in the trees. The birds come to roost and sing their even song which mingles with the music. Feet are worn bare. Shoes are left at the side, so only shoes when the surface you are dancing on is as soft and giving as skin." And Shabinia paused her branch-weaving work for a moment to indulge in recalling that extraordinary sensation of the warm, polished wood beneath her bare feet, high up in the branches of the jungle village. "Are we finished here, Foni?" asked Milo. "I mean, I can come back tomorrow, early, can't I, to learn my new skills? Perhaps we could sneak a peek at the smooth way before it gets dark." Milo's excitement was transferred from the weaving before him to the sensation which his feet were picking up while watching and listening to Shabinia's description. His skin was itching to push along this fantastic wood and know for himself what she meant. Foni, grinning at all four of the adults and looking directly into each one of their eyes, registered their acceptance of Milo's departure from the group. "Well, Milo, what are we standing here for?" he said. "Let's be off as fast as our legs can carry us. There are places to discover and spaces to feel." And turning to the adults once more, "We shall see you early tomorrow morning. Milo has one last day here before his mother and sister are finished with their cave work in the village of colour." "We shall be waiting here for you," replied Shabinia. "Go and have some fun." And the skittish Milo pulled the slightly slower and only a bit older Foni behind him in the direction his new friends had pointed him. "See you tomorrow," he shouted without turning around, and the four weavers were left to finish their work, smiling at their newest recruit to the art of aerial building. Pedro was the name of Margot's copper-coloured pet, a small armadillo-like creature who chose to live in the caves with her. Curled around the base of a large amethyst, the small animal was quietly breathing, until startled at Teal's immediate presence, it unfurled its scales to stretch his way into full alertness in front of her. These animals were perfectly suited to life in the caves, having more copper in their blood, absorbed from the minerals around them, which allowed them to breathe in the oxygen-sparse air. An animal! A stone animal! A gembringer! Is he yours? And Teal bent down to stroke the little creature, who edged his head along her hand, much like a pet dog would do.
"Pedro? Yes, he's a gembringer. My sole companion when I'm down here. He's excellent at sniffing out air shortages and usually barks at strangers. Mind you, you're an odd one, aren't you?"
said Margot, looking pointedly towards Teal. "Does he eat? What does he eat? I haven't seen anything edible down here." Teal spoke, realizing that her own stomach was starting to rumble.
"Oh, he munches away through the odd bat, insect and mouse who finds their way down here. Come on, I'll show you the growing song. You can sing yours, and then it's off to the surface for you, young lady. I spent quite enough of my time chatting with you when I should be growing trees of amethyst. I've a plan to stick to."
And she started to hum her extraordinary sound. Nodding towards Teal, Margot invited her to participate. Adding to the hum with her own pure voice, Teal began to sing a short phrase which fell into her receptive mind. "And seed from sand grow high, being grand, seed from sand grow high, being grand, seed from sand grow high, being grand, seed from sand grow high, grow high, grow high. She repeated it, humming in between as the slow drip of perfectly balanced chemical water fell from the ceiling and became the next layer of the amethyst trees. Teal could feel her body enter that state of relaxation where the DNA in her cells gently began to unwind and her mind felt that lovely light rising as though she had become weightless. The sounds poured from her lips for the next few minutes. Pedro, the gem-bringer, stone sniffer, guarded her feet in his now familiar body curl as the latticed trajectories of the amethyst forest and the sound waves merged.
Right, that will do for this session, Missy Teal. That was your name, wasn't it?
Margot gave her predictably dismissive comment into the space.
I shall send you word of how your work went, who and what grew. You'll be wanting a picture too, I should think.
Oh, thank you, Margot. Yes, a picture would be very helpful. I could show Mum and then ask her to bring me back here. And Teal knelt down to stroke Pedro, who seemed reluctant to leave her feet. He will be fine down here, won't he? I mean, doesn't he ever go up to the sunshine and the fresh air?
He's made for this life, the best gem-bringer I've ever known for rootling out gems. Beryl, apatite, rose quartz, turquoise malachite, chrysocolla, azurite, tourmaline. He can find any of those, even from above ground.
Oh, that's amazing. How can he do that?
With his whole body, little Teal. He has copper in his blood. The copper alerts him to the gems which contain copper, iron and phosphor. He's literally smelling the scent of his own blood.
The gem hound. I always wanted to meet one, and here he is wrapped around my feet. I'm glad he won't go. And Teal bent down again to stroke the small creature. His scales were warm to touch, almost furry, covered with a fine fluff which Teal guessed were part of his sensing apparatus. His long snout nuzzling into her hand. Teal felt she'd met someone she'd like to spend some time with. Would it be at all possible, Margot, to go on a gem-seeking search with Pedro sometime? I mean, he seems so to like me, and I'd love to watch him in action. Teal was used to asking naturally for things she found fascinating. It was one of the charms of Zog children that they never hid behind false modesty or politeness. Who needs words of learned politeness when you have natural warmth?
If you come back and visit me on your next trip, I promise you I will show you Pedro in his element. We'll do a gem hunt and begin work on your next forest.
The next one? You mean to make more trees underground? What are they for? I mean, I know they're beautiful, but why would you want to grow them? Asked Teal.
For the same reason that you wanted to come into this room. Sheer curiosity. I want to know if it can be done and if I can create something beautiful. It's what I've always striven for, though few have appreciated my own peculiar taste.
Well, I don't know anyone who wouldn't think this was breathtaking, responded Teal. Can I sing the song once more time before I go? I should like to keep on singing it while I'm away. Send the echo rippling towards you from afar. I think these trees could grow all the way to the ceiling.
Yes, that's the plan, to form trees of 15 metres height. It will be splendid. I shall let a few people visit and perhaps sing in here. The space should be powerful and preserved for its beauty.
Margot said this with a wistfulness in her voice which sent Teal's imagination heading towards possible scenarios from her past where people had not always felt that way about her creations. She quickly cut this sad thought with a change of subject. I'll keep in touch through my pod. You can send me a picture of how they've grown, and I shall come and visit you and Pedro when I return. Mum says it will be in 3 months' time, when the next stage of vanilla harvesting is due.
Good. So off you go. Careful, mind your head on the lintel of this cave. You have to duck, you know. Yes, even you, small person, even you.
And with that she disappeared in the shadowy recesses of the cave, and Teal was left to move on up into the daylight, accompanied by her gem-seeking hound, who uttered a short whimper as she ascended the spiral staircase to the entire corridor. Bye, Pedro. I shall see you soon, and you'll tell me all about the trees and your gems and that special nose of yours. Sonia was waiting in the workshop where she had last seen Teal, chatting to Fabi, who had finished her egg cups and was showing Teal's blue bowl to her. Ah, Mum, hi. Have you been waiting a long time? I met Pedro and Margot, and we've been growing trees out of amethysts. Not surprised in the slightest by this news from her daughter, Sonia smiled and told Teal she would have to spend all the journey homewards explaining everything she saw, for she was just as curious as her daughter.